So Undertone is a horror film about a podcaster who focuses on audio files that seem pretty creepy, but when you listen to them further, there's something even darker beyond those wave files. Now, there's something undeniably spooky about nestling your ears in headphones, listening to the mysterious audio files, and hearing something sinister concealed in the background or hidden in reverse. And Undertone has that atmosphere nailed, just for being unsure if that creepy voice was coming from your speakers or upstairs. Where it chooses to go with this idea is less impressive than the mastery of audio scares and freaky revelations spun from a haunted podcast confined to a scary interior. The film starts intriguingly enough with the desire to listen, drawing the audience into the home of Evie, played here by Nina Kiri. She cares for her silent and bedridden mother during the day and spends her nights recording a paranormal podcast. With her co-host Justin, played here by Adam DeMarco, on the other line, they get into character as they watch and listen to frightening media posted online. And they do have a believable dynamic with how they, try to get themselves into podcast mode and, prep themselves for recording. And they play off each other really well, with, Evie being more skeptical than Justin of the cursed audio and video that they play on their podcast. Now, for their latest episode, they have received 10 audio recordings of a married couple with a strange message attached. For Evie and Justin, there's something spine-chilling enough about these recordings to break up the episode across multiple nights, where it feels like they shouldn't listen to them all at once, because maybe something cursed or terrible will happen, which, spoilers, it does. Now, there are plenty of chills that can be evoked within the house of Evie's mother, and there's a simmering terror to explore. Did Evie's mom get up when she wasn't looking? Why are the lights turning on by themselves? What was that loud rustling upstairs? Is the clock going backwards? And these subtle doses of horror have some appeal on the surface as Evie's more internal anxieties of alcoholism and parenthood creep into her psyche. But the material stretches when, it starts favoring Dutch angles and the audio files become as overt in their messaging as Evie's darkest fears manifesting to the surface. Once it becomes clear what Evie is truly being haunted by within the house and on her laptop, autopilot is enabled as all the greatest hits of haunted house movies drop in the final moments. Like, there's a TV with a shocking image that can't be turned off. There's childlike scribbles on the walls. There's an all-in-her-head realization, and the good old-fashioned exploding light bulb. And here's the thing. While I don't mind these scare tactics, I felt like I was watching more of a show reel than a horror story that was tapping into something darkly psychological. It's essentially madness that is more cosmetic than discomforting. So yeah, Undertone has the right levels of tech-based terror, but needs to turn up the psychological chills rather than just level them off. There is a mystery in the first half of the film that is enough to make one lean closer to the screen and listen a little bit more carefully to everything in the background or the muffled voices coming from the ceiling, or maybe if there is a dark message in those classic children's songs. But the big revelation in the third act, it's telegraphed way too soon that it becomes a very underwhelming film when it gets towards the ending. And it's not that it's bad. I mean, I actually enjoyed some of the frights for their technical assembly. The movie as a whole is spooky, but also very anticlimactic, writing out the podcast frights with horror is more workhorse than rattling. So I appreciated this picture, I think, more for the atmosphere here and there. I think the director did a very good job trying to get these very familiar type of scares to be pretty effective in how they're presented on the screen. But the story itself, I felt, was a bit thin. It felt like it was stretching itself way too long for what essentially should have been like a really good short. I would have loved to see just all 10 files just gone through in one night. You'd have like a really good 20-minute short here. But as a feature-length film, it felt like it was taking, especially once you figure out the allegory, which you will about halfway through, it becomes very obvious. And at that point, you're just watching the film kind of more like a roller coaster. Like you're appreciating the scares on a more technical level than saying anything more psychologically damaging, which the film did have the potential to do. There is something psychologically menacing and terrorizing lurking in this film that I feel like it kind of like settles too easily on a haunted house format. So yeah, Undertone, I'm a little bit of a mixed review here. It kind of leaning a little bit more towards negative, but I do appreciate the effort that went into this assembly. I think there's some effective scares here, but the story, it's stretched pretty thin here. I appreciated more of the scares in Undertone than anything else with the character growth and the revelation in here. So yeah, Undertone, it's an okay horror film.